Oh, well, hello and welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. I am your host, Terri Cole. If you don't know me, I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a relationship expert, and the founder of Real Love Revolution and Boundary Bootcamp. Welcome. Today, we're going to be breaking down some boundary basics, and I'm going to be answering some of the juiciest questions that came in yesterday for our very first Boundary Palooza workshop, all about how to understand what the worst myths about boundaries are. So that's what we did. So welcome. Do me a favor, say hello as you come in. We're live on Instagram. We're live on Facebook. We're just live everywhere. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi. Everyone is coming from everywhere. I'm super excited. And hey, if you're into boundary intelligence, if you're into having boundary wisdom, if you want to up your boundary, your healthy boundary skill set, and you think that you have friends who might want to do that as well, share this now. Just hit it. You know who your people are. You know who needs it, which is P.S. everybody. Do that. It's a kindness. Consider it. If you were Jewish, you would consider it a mitzvah. It's a good deed. That's all I'm saying, right? Sharing is caring. That's what I'm talking about. And the more people who have a clue, just a remote clue about what healthy boundaries are, the better for your life and your love life for that matter. Speaking of love. Anywho, let's move on. If you're watching this later in any of these places, please use the hashtag replay and I will be jumping back in to say hello, to answer your questions. So even if it's really late right now where you live, if you see this after the fact, don't you worry. I'm still there with you in spirit, and I will be checking back. So I will be taking your questions and doing my thing. So we are moving into how many people were on the workshop yesterday. I just want to see some hands of the people, of the women who were able to. If you were on the workshop, just say yes, or give me a like, or give me some hearts if you're on IG Live, or drop something into the, drop something right here if you're on Facebook. I want to see. I see people giving me thumbs up. We got a wave. Right on. All right. I see it happening. So a lot of you were, and apparently a lot of you were, because we basically broke the internet, people. It was so amazing that so many of you jumped on simultaneously that the server was like, bye, I quit. But it was only for 10 minutes and it actually didn't interrupt the flow of what I was saying, which is kind of mind-blowing that I didn't even know. Talk about having an amazing team. I literally had no idea that it happened until after. They're like, there was a slight snag. I was like, oh, good. It didn't stop me because I'm telling you guys, yesterday I was possessed by the power of boundaries. I was like a TV evangelist losing my mind, but with inspiration. So those of you who were there, you know it. And if you missed it, don't you worry. All you need to do is go to terricole.com/workshop. And you can still sign up. You can see yesterday's and get tomorrow's is number 2, is tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Then we have next Tuesday and next Thursday. And that will be the 4 workshops that we're doing. So you didn't miss anything. You are right on time, my dear. So don't you worry about it. Okay. Most of you know about Boundary Palooza, but it's in full swing if you don't know. So all you need to do is do exactly what I just said. Go to terricole.com/workshop and sign up. And you will get all of the many things that we're giving you, because it isn't just about signing up for the workshop. There's a lot of assets. We've created a beautiful workbook for you. I'm giving you free guided meditations about boundaries. So it's a whole experience. You know how I love to say that this is Boundary Bootcamp season? Well, it is. So we're doing a whole thing. It's a whole 10-day thing, and you can join at any time. So it isn't like you missed anything. If you weren't there, you were right on time. You could still watch yesterday's and you can still be in for tomorrow, no matter when you're watching. So we make it so that you kind of can't miss it, you know, if you want, you know, because honestly, a lot of people say they want to get better. Oh, I really need to work on that. But I'm giving you an opportunity to actually work on that. I'm giving for free. It's actually completely free for me to guide you on this path. And I feel like so many of us, you know, we need it because we don't know anything about boundaries. Hence why today I'm going to be talking about boundary basics. Just basically, what are they? So you're understanding, because I think there are a lot of definitions out there about what boundaries are. And because of what we learned yesterday, those of you who are on the workshop, We were talking about the 5 most dangerous myths and the truth that will set you free about boundaries. Because whether you know it or not, especially women, we're very socialized to be nice and to have, when you think about it right now, if you weren't on yesterday, and even if you were, when you think about like having rock solid boundaries, are you like, oh yeah, I so want that? Or are you like, oh, people are not going to like me, or people are going to think I'm a bitch, or I have to be mean to have rock solid boundaries? So those are some of the things that we covered yesterday. But I feel like there are a lot of people who really don't know anything about boundaries. And don't worry, whatever questions you have, Team TC is grabbing them. They're putting them into a shared doc for me so that I will try to hit them, because you know how easily I can get distracted. And before you know it, I'm like, wait, what was I supposed to be talking about? So I'm going to try to stick to just giving you some basics. And we had some really, really juicy questions come in yesterday, and I answered many of them. But obviously there were hundreds of questions, and it would have been impossible for me to answer them all. But then we went through all last night and this morning, and we were pulling out ones that we thought would be most relevant to other people, ones that were just great, that illustrate, that I could answer, that would really help the most amount of humans watching this. So let's get moving, shall we? I'm so excited that you're here with me. I want boundary season to last forever. So what are boundaries? Like, the simplest way to describe it is, I could ask all of you, have you ever seen a no trespassing sign in front of a house or a building? I'm going to say you have. We know what that means, right? You can see the no trespassing sign, like violators will be prosecuted, a lot of times they say. And then you can see sometimes there's a fence around the place, or there are hedges around a house. These are boundaries. We understand the limit. We understand that if we jump over that fence and dive into that public pool, according to them, there are going to be consequences. They might sue you, they might whatever. Personal boundaries are similar to that, but they're different because they're not visible, and because for each person, each one of you is super unique. And so there really is no boundary skill set, like one size fits all, just do this and you're going to be a master. That really isn't how it is, because it's all based on how well you know yourself, your history, your family of origin, what happened in your life. Those are all the things that determine it. So your personal boundaries are very unique to you, but there are some things that we all share, because it's basically the definition of what boundaries are. So we can describe them as a set of rules, limits, or guidelines that you create to basically, you're identifying a safe and permissible way for others to interact with you. So I want you to think of it as your own personal, unique rules of engagement in life when you're with, because you know this is true, how different we are. When you go to different countries, some countries, you go to Spain, everybody kisses you. You don't even know them. They're kissing one side, kissing the other side. Okay. You go to, I don't know, Norway, Canada, anywhere else, and even in the US, you don't do that. And if someone you don't know were to lean in to go to kiss you in the US, you would most likely step backwards away from that person, being like, what is happening right now? So it's not just that we personally have different unique boundaries. They are informed by the culture, the family norms, right? The groups that we travel in all have different ways of communicating and relating to personal boundaries. So yes, they're personal, but how they are right now for you is that they're built by all of these other influences, have so much to do with how you are and how you relate to boundaries. And that is always the foundation. You have to understand your own unique boundary blueprint in order to become a boundary boss, if that's what you're looking to do. It can't be based on what works for someone else, because that doesn't work for you, right? Have you ever been talking to someone and for your comfort, they're talking too close to you? Have you ever had that experience? Now, you don't need to flip out and punch someone in the face, but naturally, without even thinking about it, you'll step backwards. You will do whatever you can to make the boundary between you, the space between you, bigger. And let's say the close talker steps up. When you step back, then it might come from your unconscious mind, or the basement of your house, as I like to say, and move into your conscious mind, where you might even, especially if you don't like to, ask for what you want, or if you feel like you don't want to be a pain, you might even step back another time. If a close talker steps towards me after I've already stepped back, I'm like, hey, Bob, do me a favor. Why are you crowding me? Move back. Like, I don't have a problem saying that. It shouldn't be offensive. Why is Bob crowding you? Like, get out of my space, man. Everyone has a different idea of what that personal space is. And what I'm describing right there are physical boundaries. So I'm going to quickly go through the types, and then sort of the categories, and then the 3 types. And then I'm going to answer some questions. Okay? Sound good? All right. I'm going to try to do it all in 30 minutes. I think I can. So the 4 main areas that we talk about are material, physical, mental, and emotional boundaries. So material boundaries is basically, do you lend things? Do you not lend things? Do you keep your car very clean? Do you keep your car like a pigsty? How do you like all of it? How do you like the lights in your house? Do you lend people money? That is actually a material boundary. Do you like people eating off your plate? Some people don't like that. I'm a plate eater. I want to eat off everyone's plate and my own. And I don't mind people eating off my plate. But that's particular. And when I'm with a friend, I have friends who are like, you know me, I don't like to share. Get off my plate. And then I get off their plate. Or I actually ask them to put some of that food on a small plate for me, because I definitely want to eat. Whatever it is they're eating, I definitely want it. All right, so we have material boundaries. Move into physical boundaries. Now, this includes sexual boundaries. So how early you are sexual when you're dating, how often you want to be sexual in a relationship, the way that you like or allow someone to touch you. So it's very important to get really clear about this, because I find that in the women, doing this for 22 years as a psychotherapist, predominantly with women, I would find that women would a lot of times feel like they had to sort of acquiesce to what someone else wanted sexually. So if the person took them out to dinner, it was a second or third date, they were like, I feel like I kind of should do something. And I think you shouldn't. And so if letting someone pay for dinner makes you think you need to then do something that you actually don't want to do, then don't let them pay. Then just go Dutch, because that is a very important boundary. And you'd be shocked when you start to really draw sexual boundaries that are aligned with how you feel. Hey, listen, if you want to have sex on the first date, go you, right? I'm not judging that. In my experience, I find that people felt more obligated a lot of times, or felt pressured to do so, which is different than with total free will, being like, yeah, man, I want to do this, right? Because I'm not anti-sex, I'm anti-feeling coerced and not having the boundaries to say no, or the boundary skills, or the language. That's what I'm against. All right, moving into mental boundaries. It's basically your thoughts, your values, your opinions. It's basically, do you know what you stand for? Can you hold on to your thoughts, your opinions, and your beliefs, even when you're with people who disagree with those things? That is having solid emotional boundaries. It's also knowing that you're not responsible for other people's feeling states, other people's decisions, not being vulnerable to letting people guilt you, not guilting other people. And having good emotional boundaries also means that you can accept another person's no. So on the workshop tomorrow at 3:00, we're going to be talking about how to master your no. But part of mastering your no is also being able to accept someone else's no and not flip out, guilt them, be passive aggressive, make it mean they don't love you, because in a codependent relationship, there's not a lot of, we're not allowed, usually if you're in a codependent relationship, there's not a lot of being able to say no to each other, because that you expect full loyalty. You're with me or against me. That's it, All right, moving into, what are the other ones? All right, we got them. We did them. Okay, moving into those were sort of the 4, and if we put sexual into the physical, that is 5 categories of boundaries. And now how can they be in your life? You can have a different relationship. What are the actual I don't know if we're going to call them styles or types. I think types is probably the way to go. So if you have rigid boundaries, what does that look like? Rigid boundaries means that maybe you're the loner. You avoid intimacy. You only have very few close friendships. Very unlikely to ask for help. And I find that really interesting because a lot of the women in my crew and in my groups and in my courses are definitely down for doing shit on their own, by themselves, not wanting to be a pain, not wanting to ask anybody. Very protective of personal information if you have rigid boundaries. I find that the clients I've had can border on being slightly paranoid about that. And you may seem detached even from romantic partners. They may experience you as being like once removed because your boundaries are so rigid. Imagine it's like a moat and a huge wall around your authentic self or your real heart. You keep others at a distance to avoid the possibility of rejection. Anybody? Yeah, that's a big one if you have rigid boundaries. So rigid means either they're too big, they're too strong, they're too high. There's too much space that you feel compelled to create between you and other people. And then we move into the flip side of that. So what is that? Porous boundaries, which means they're very loose. You overshare personal information. You could meet someone and it could be a first date or a new friend, and you're literally like telling them your entire life story, what happened, all the gory details that you don't even know if they're trustworthy, right? You don't even know. They don't deserve to know that about you if they don't even friggin' know you, right? Right. So what else? Difficulty saying no when other people ask you to do stuff, over involved with the problems of others, which is called codependency. And even if you are a high functioning codependent, as we say in my crew, where you don't fall into the sort of codependent, no more, Melody Beatty, involved with an addict, totally enabling codependency. If you are overly invested in the emotional states, the choices, the behaviors of the people in your life, that is still codependency and still causes you stress and anxiety nonetheless. Dependent on the opinion of others. Like needing that validation to know who you are. So when we get into the styles, which I'm going to be doing a live about the 6 unhealthy boundary styles. So you guys who are on my list, you'll get the info because I can't remember when I'm doing it right now. This is like the chameleon, has very porous boundaries where you can sort of just become like the people you're with. Whatever they're doing. When you're in a romantic relationship, you take on their likes. And this is also very common when we're younger, but you should have better boundaries by the time you're 35, 40, 50, 60, right? We should already know who we are. But for a lot of people, they don't. So hence Boundary Palooza and Wednesday Wisdom, we're talking about it. Sometimes if you have very porous boundaries, you accept bullshit from other people, bad behavior, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, like you tolerate it. You think it's going to get better, right? Someone said, can rigid boundaries be a sign of trust issues? Yes, it sure can. Because you could develop more rigid boundaries after having trust broken, you know? And the last thing is fear of rejection if you don't comply. So it's the disease to please others, which, trust me, is not very pleasing to you. But there's this fear that you'll be abandoned, rejected, hurt, humiliated if you don't do what other people want you to do. That's having porous boundaries. So let's move into, what do we want? Obviously, we want healthy boundaries. That's what Boundary Palooza is all about. That's what these Wednesday Wisdoms are about. That's what the course coming up in October, Boundary Bootcamp 2019. That's what that is all about, is creating a healthy boundary skill set. And when I say that, what I mean is you becoming legit empowered in your life and in your relationships. So let's take it out of the boundary frame for a moment, because what having a rocking healthy boundary skill set, like literally knowing how to do it, what it creates is your ability to step up, to be seen, to say no, to let your beautiful and amazing ideas be known in the world. You're not waiting for someone to basically pull your chair up to the big table. You learn that if your chair is going to get to the big table, you know how it's getting there? You. Grab your damn chair and pull it up if that's what you want. So there's so much more, and so much of what I teach and have taught for many years is about effective communication and really deeply understanding these original injuries in your life that taught you how to communicate ineffectively, indirectly, passive aggressively. Make sense? Okay. We are moving on to what are healthy boundaries? You know what they are. You value your own opinion. You don't compromise your values for other people, which is really major. Go against the grain. You're sitting there with people, someone makes a racist comment. You don't either say nothing or laugh. You go, you know what? That I do not like that. And I'm not sitting here if you're going to, that hate talk is bullshit and it's not my thing or whatever. You wouldn't have to do it the way Terri Cole would do it, but having good boundaries instead of being complicit in other people's behavior that goes against your integrity, you have the strength to go, I'm out. Like, I don't want to be around these people. Bye. You know what I mean? You share your personal information in an appropriate way. That means over time with people who have proven that they are trustworthy to know those things about you, because not everyone should have a backstage pass to your life. When you have healthy boundaries, you curate that VIP section of your life. Just because someone thinks they should be a VIP, when you're healthy, they don't get to be in the VIP section. That's their wish. That's their dream. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean you have to let them in. If they're toxic and if they're not important to you, even if they're family members, you can stay connected to them, but they don't need that access, even if they think they should have it or feel entitled to it. But when you're healthy, you can be like, no, I didn't invite you to that dinner party because it was my close friends. Cousin Sue, get lost. You know what I mean? Rather than being like, oh, I'm sorry, I tried, whatever. You don't need to do that, but it's knowing that. You know your personal wants, needs, and can communicate them, and even just simple preferences. We start with that. Like, it's okay to just be like, I would rather not have Japanese food for lunch. Can we please go to wherever? And the last one, accepting when other people say no without flipping out. You know, it's not personal. And listen, most of us are a mix of all of these things, but you will definitely have a predominant type that you employ more than others. All right, moving into, let me have some other questions. Thanks for this. The replay is amazing. Are boundaries only a problem for highly sensitive people and empaths? Do others just get it? Like understand how to have boundaries? No, others don't just get it. It's more of a problem usually, or a particularly painful problem for highly sensitive people and empaths, because we feel so much, so deeply. And so part of the process, and actually what I teach in the course more, is about how to protect your energy, how to zip up your energy without being closed off. It's not about cutting people off. I mean, unless they're toxic and deserve it, but knowing how to manage your energy and protect yourself has so much to do with making you more capable of drawing boundaries if you are a highly sensitive person or an empath, and a lot of times they go together. So other people don't just get it though. But I just feel like it's more challenging for HSPs and empaths to do it because of how deeply we feel and how exhausting it is. If you're not protecting your energy every night, you're just dropping into a coma probably because it's exhausting. All right, how to set boundaries and not second guess myself, not guilt myself. How do I avoid the maybe I should have said this or that? That often comes from setting a boundary. Thanks. Well, what you're describing is what I call having a boundary hangover. And you have this desire. You do it, and you have a desire to take it back. And a lot of times we have that desire to take it back instantaneously. I can't tell you how many times someone has been like, well, I would really appreciate if you do this. I'm like, no problem, I'll do it. Well, listen, it doesn't have to be now, and it's not a big deal. And you know what, don't even worry. And I'm like, listen, whatever bullshit you're working out with your boundaries, you made the request. I'm happy to do it. So just don't be working your crap out on me. Back in therapy you go. Take Terry's Boundary Bootcamp. You'll learn all about it. But you know what I mean? Because what we're doing is when we set a boundary and ruminate, as you described, and then want to take it back or want to soften the blow of it because we're so afraid to do it. We're giving people bad intel about us. We are giving people bad data about how to interact with us, about what matters to us, about what's important to us. So they try to step up to do it for us, and we're like, forget it, whatever, I'm taking it back, I don't care, it's okay, it's not a big deal. And then you stay in that same exact frustrating place. What I want to say is that the more you do it and the more language you learn to do it, which we are doing in the third next Tuesday's workshop, I'm giving you actual scripts on what to say when you're right there and you want to say it, but you're like, I don't know, I don't want to sound like a jerk, I don't want them to be mad. So that's next Tuesday, which is the 17th of September. I'm just saying. When you start doing that, and I have a 48-hour rule, you can't do anything for 48 hours once you make the request. When you're in the course itself, you'll see that people just go, oh, okay. And people who flip out, they also effing get over it. But you got to let them get over it. And you got to go, they'll be like, you're changing, you're different, I don't like it. Okay, well, you know what? You'll get to like it. It's called the new normal, and it's coming. So, and listen, it isn't like you can't talk about it, but there's a reality that you're the one who has to do this for yourself. We like to be mad at people and be like, well, she's such a bully and he's such a bully and these people are so demanding and entitled. Yeah, and what did you do when they were demanding and entitled? That's your 50% of that relationship dance. So if what you did is bitch to your friend and say not one thing to that person, you become someone who is perpetuating this thing that you don't want in your life. So every time you're like, well, if he would only, I want you to stop and go, okay, but what's my part in this thing that I'm not liking right now? How am I fueling this? Did I say anything? Did I make a request? Did I point it out? Did I go to HR if it's a business thing? Someone wrote in a question, how do I nicely tell the married men who keep hitting on me where I work, like, how do I nicely tell them that I don't like it? And I was like, why are we so worried about how these a-holes who are married and hitting on you and they're married, why are we so worried about the niceness factor? Hey, Bob, I wonder what your wife would think about you asking me out for drinks. Is she going to be there? Because I'm happy to call her. Like, listen, you don't have to be aggro as I can be about this, because you know what? Fuck Bob is what I have to say about that. And it just made me so mad that this woman was like worried. Like, how do I do it nicely? Is it nice that Bob is disgusting? It is not nice. Is Bob being nice to his wife right now? Is Bob being nice that he's telling you he thinks that you're a side piece? No, Bob's an asshole. That's what's happening. Bob is a jerk. So how about we figure out a firm, appropriate way of dealing with the Bobs in the world, as opposed to worrying if Bob is going to still like me. Bob, you know what I mean? Anyway, so when we get to that on Tuesday, the 17th, you don't worry, you will have the scripts to, as nicely or as hostilely as you would like, draw the boundary, because the scripts that I'm going to be sharing with you, you will be making them your own, right? Because nobody can give you a script saying, say this exact thing. It's got to flow for you. And if it's new for you, then maybe she would do it way nicer than I would, right? Because I'm already a boundary boss and she's like a baby boundary boss in training. So that's a different experience. So no judgment. I just get pissed because Bob's gross. And I don't know why I got to worry about how Bob feels when he's trying to step out on his wife. I don't like that. All right, I'm going to do 2 more questions and then I got to go because we're already at 1:29. All right. I'm always afraid to hurt people by saying no. How to set your mind on not to be afraid. I can't necessarily tell you how to set your mind to not be afraid, but I can tell you that fear is just a feeling. So I would ask you to think about the fear of hurting someone the same way that if you ever try to quit anything, smoking, drugs, drinking, I've done them all. It's like when I was actively drinking back in the day when I was in college and whatever, I would say I wasn't going to drink the next day. And then I would get an urge. Sun's starting to go down. I'm like, who wants a cocktail? Like I just wanted to drink because I was an alcoholic. And I would say, in my mind, I'd be like, all the excuses would start coming, like, just one, whatever. What I realized when I got into recovery was that urge to drink, if I didn't go with it, would actually pass. And I'd be uncomfortable for like a little bit. But I could call someone else in the program. I could call my friends. I could call my sisters. I could do something else. So this is the same thing. I want you to look at that fear as like an urge to undo something healthy that you're working for. And this is a very codependent response that you shared. Like, I'm afraid. So you get dialed into the other person's feelings. I'm afraid their feelings are going to be hurt. What is that going to mean? You know what? You've trained them that you will do what it is they want you to do, because that has been like the way that you love people. But you can also train them and untrain them out of that and teach them that you can say no and still love them. So if you say no and the person's like, I'm really disappointed you said you would do it, you could say, you know what? I know, I can hear that you're disappointed. And I just want you to know that I still love you, but I really need to do this for myself. I'm traveling the next day. I just can't come home late and get up at 5 a.m. to go on the plane, and I don't want to. So I would really appreciate you trying to understand, but just know that just because I can't come to this party doesn't mean that I don't love you and I really do value our friendship. Do you see what I mean? That there's language, there's a way to convey what you feel without just having them be like, well, now I'm hurt. And you being like, okay, I'll come. Because what you're training them to do is that you can be manipulated by guilt. Who wants that? Even if they're not trying to do that. I'm not even saying that your friends are actively doing that, because this is so unconscious, you guys. Why do I have a course on it? Why am I doing a whole series on it? Why does this workshop series exist? Because if you knew this, if your mother taught you this, if your father taught you this, I'd be talking about something wholly different. But nobody teaches us this. And I've spent 22 years collecting all of this information to actually make it a methodology for you to hit every single thing that I've seen in 22 years of being in the trenches with my clients as what are the problems that disordered boundaries create. What created the disordered boundaries to begin with? So we do the going back. And then now, how do we get them balanced? How do we create order with this disorder? We have to look at these limiting beliefs, this corrupted information that has been passed down from generation to generation that is not true. And perhaps it was true for your ancestors or your parents, but it does not need to be true for you. So I just teach you to create a new boundary blueprint intentionally and with your heart and your mind aligned with what you want in life and how you want to feel. That's basically what we're doing. And that's what I'm doing in these workshops as well. So, all right, I got one more question and then I think I'm going to go, maybe two more. I don't know. All right. One more says, I heard from the peanut gallery of my team. Hold on. Which one should I do? There's so many. My biggest challenge is boundary myth number one, what was that? Because I don't even know. I'm too concerned with being liked. Oh, I see it. It's like they think I'm mean. I'm too concerned with being liked to say no or to ask for what I want. I like what you said about how we act for our highest good and someone else's disappointment is their side of the street. I would love it if you could talk more about relieving that guilt in a future episode. Well, we'll talk about it right now. I guess this is the future episode. It was only one day later. How's that? So relieving the guilt, part of what I do with clients, what we do in the course is we have to really look at the guilt. How did that start? Who are like the original injuries with, right? I like to say even though it sounds mean, but it's like perpetrator zero, right? So was that like a mother, a father who used a lot of guilt? A narcissistic parent would certainly would do anything to make you do what they want you to do. You're not doing enough for them. So there's certainly some family of origin stuff going, but I ask you to question the guilt. I really ask you to become very curious about why you're feeling that way. Is this familiar? Do I always feel this way when I'm with this kind of a friend who is kind of entitled? Who else was entitled in my life? Why is this familiar to me? We start to be able to connect the dots backwards to the original injuries. And this is the beginning of changing. Because then we get to tell our conscious mind, oh, hey, you know what? That's so weird. Yeah, this is my friend, but they're not my parent. And I'm not 10. I'm a grown ass woman. So I can say no to my friend and she can be mad and we can get over it, or we cannot. Right? But I think the guilt thing is something that we're really going to connect the dots backwards to understand the origin of the way that you relate to guilt. Because that means that your current person is representing someone from the past. That's all I'm saying. All right, I'm going to answer one more question. That's it. One more. I said that was it, but one more. Norma said, can someone vacillate between rigid and porous boundaries? And the answer is yes. So you can have sort of rigid boundaries at work and then have your romantic life be where, or it can be the other way around. Your romantic life can be where you don't know how to do it. It's just, you're like, help, I just got to do what they want me to do. Even if you are like a CFO, a COO, you got a big job, you know how to negotiate systems. And somehow when you get into a romantic relationship or on a dating app, you're like, I'm 11. I'm in middle school right now. I have no idea what I'm doing. So yes is the answer to that. And there will be more about that as we're going forward in the workshop. So if you haven't done it, the workshop, if you haven't signed up for it, please do. terricole.com/workshop. It's super duper easy. And listen, if you can't make it live, that's okay, because we're creating, and I think it's live right now or going live any minute, Boundary Palooza Central, which is going to be like a landing page where everything is, once the workshops are all done, and we're going to leave it up for quite a bit. So you're going to have a chance to get all of the things, all the free gifts that we have for you. You'll have a chance to share what we're doing and win like fabulous prizes and talk to me for 30 minutes on Skype if you want to. A little tea with Terri. Hold on. Oh yeah, we're also giving away a bunch of Amazon gift cards for $25 if you share about Boundary Palooza, a whole digital meditation thing that I did, like all of my stuff that I know you guys would love. We're doing Thrive Hive bundle of information and teachings that I do. So there's lots and lots of fun stuff. And why do I want you to share? Why do I want you to share? Because it's amazing and I want to help as many people as possible. So I want you to think about it, that the sharing, yeah, you could win cool stuff. That's great too. And yes, I'm bribing you a little bit to do it. But I also want you to think about the truth is where my heart is, and I want your heart to be in the same place, which is that the more people that we help to create this higher boundary IQ, the better the world is going to be. Let's normalize increasing our mental health, shall we? And we can do it together. This is a positive ripple effect. Look at how many people were doing it yesterday that we crashed the internet. I mean, this is valuable, you guys. This is something, and for people who can't afford to be in therapy and can't do it, this is free. And there'll be an opportunity to do more work with me at the end. But in the meantime, we have still 2 weeks of just doing this. So share it because you're a good person. And in the meantime, I hope you have an amazing rest of today. And I hope to see all of you tomorrow on workshop number 2, where I'm going to teach you how to master your no so that you can really get to hell yes. Because if your no is full of shit, so is your yes. You get it? All right, you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you have an amazing day. As always, take care of you. And I'll see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. I'm ending that one.